Big names are on the Ole Miss campus. Shark tweets are going around. It's the most anticipated thing around the Ole Miss fan base right now. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network now. It's the most, popular sports podcast network in the entire world. That is all because of you. On today's show, we're going to bring in David Johnson from Ole Miss 365 to talk about what's going on this weekend in the transfer portal. The two big names that have come in, including Edwin Joseph from Florida State, and there's a new commitment of safety right before we went on the air, committed from Georgia. He's a former five-star out of high school as well. We'll talk about all of that with David, technology permitting of what's going on. All of this and more on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make this show what it is, and that is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is the best place to get in on the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff boost every single game day. That will be pretty fantastic. Anyway, Ole Miss got a commitment today from Edwin Joseph from Florida State, a really good player. I talked with the Florida football scout about him. The talent on this guy is off the charts. If he comes in and he is coachable, he has a chance to be a big-time free safety level player. Ole Miss just got a commitment from Georgia. I'm not sure about the pronunciation. I'll ask David about that when we bring him on right after this. So David Johnson from Ole Miss 365 is here. David, more defensive commits for Pete Golding, a couple of safeties, and the clear thing right now is that Pete Golding is not going to let happen what happened this year, and that was the secondary being a total liability and the inability to play man coverage.
Yeah, he's fixing problems and addressing needs. And, fans like to see the former 4 stars and 5 stars and all of that that you pick up in the portal. But there's also the reasoning of addressing needs. And Pete is addressing needs. Edwin Joseph, the DB from Florida State, he's versatile, and that's what Pete likes. He has always recruited DBs that could either play the safety position, the corner position, or the nickel position. Joseph played both safety and corner, some at Florida State, and I really would expect him to play cornerback more so than safety. But he is a big brick in Pete's effort to fix what you accurately described as the ailing part of the Ole Miss defense.
Yeah, everybody had a problem with Ole Miss doing drop 8 coverage all the time, and it was very much against the ethos, essentially, of Pete Golding, what he likes to do. And the reason he did it is he had to protect those safeties. Mm-hmm. There was a problem. Wyatt Williams was really decent by the end of the year, but there were people that could be picked on in that secondary whenever the offense knew that Ole Miss was going to man coverage, and that's the reason they had to drop 8 so much to protect those guys. The other player that committed was Jonell Aguero from Georgia. He was a former 5-star out of high school. I'm telling you, they are loading up on safeties. They added Jay Crawford, who from Auburn, a cornerback that has Trey Amos potential. My friend Zach Blackerby at Locked On Auburn said that this guy was one of his favorite Auburn players of all time. Really, really good football player. They are adding all sorts of corners. I think they're going to be set, but they want depth in that safety room, and that's what's happening in the first week of this transfer portal.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Jonell Aguero is one of those guys. You mentioned a former 5-star recruit. Look, had you signed him out of high school people would be partying in the streets. And I don't think he reached his capability, if you will, at Georgia. Certainly ample opportunity here in Oxford to be able to flourish. And, I think that's what Pete saw in him. That's what Ole Miss saw in him. Certainly the talent has never been a question with Aguero. And, again, just another piece back there that he's addressing. I mean, to have to, as you mentioned, Stephen, to have to drop 8 all the time, man, that gets you. And we saw that against Miami in the Fiesta Bowl. Carson Beck eventually figured it out, got accurate, and was able to hurt Ole Miss downfield. And then, you're left with a pass rush depending on 3 guys to hopefully get to the quarterback. They'd walk Sonny P up to the line of scrimmage a lot, but he would drop off into coverage a lot as well. So, 3 against 5, do the math. That's what you were faced with. But as you pointed out, Pete did that to protect his safeties. And he had to. He didn't have a choice. He's trying to remedy that right now in the transfer portal. And I will say this, the portal is a frenzy, particularly this year. It lasts only 2 weeks, and then it's over. I think you're going to see a lot more committable action, if you will, this weekend. Ole Miss has as many, and we're still trying to figure it out. They have 6 guys on campus right now. One of them is a very accomplished offensive lineman from Ohio State. You've got the safety from Southern Miss that's on campus. There's a wide receiver on campus right now.
That's the guy from Kentucky,
and two quarterbacks, DJ Lagway and Deuce Knight. I think you're going to get at least 1 quarterback commit, maybe 2. Maybe both of them are going to get in the boat and decide they'll battle it out. But, I mean, it's happening. It's portal weekend, if you will. And, I don't know. I really don't know if we've had this level of recruiting excitement in a pretty long time, to be honest with you.
Yeah, for the transfer portal king stuff that we did in the recent years and talked about, there was a whole lot of finishing second in that process. It feels like, for whatever reason, especially on the defensive side of the ball, Ole Miss is kind of winning right now. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that just the other night they were in the national semifinals. They're as the Baylor host, the Locked On Baylor host said, the Ole Miss is as hot as fish grease at the moment. So we'll see exactly what happens. When we come back, we will talk about Deuce Knight. We will talk about DJ Lagway. We will continue with the transfer portal in the third segment. Remember, it's all yours, just like every live stream. Put your question in the comment section. We'll do our best to try and figure out what's going on. That is going to be all used. David Johnson from 365. I'm Ole Miss, Locked On Ole Miss podcast, Stephen Willis, and we will be back in just a second. All right, I want to tell you about Rugiet. Let's talk about something that men don't usually like to bring up, but absolutely should. Stress from work, money, life, it just doesn't switch off at night. So when it shows up at the worst possible time, Rugiet Ready is designed to help you take control back. Rugiet Ready is the next generation prescription treatment created for both the brain and the body, so you can feel present, confident, and ready when the moment matters most. Rugiet Ready combines 3 clinically proven ingredients in one mint that dissolves under your tongue, so it absorbs fast. It's easy to understand why over 150,000 men have already made the switch. Most men are ready in about 15 minutes on average, so you can stay present, confident, and in control when the moment is right. So if you've been thinking about taking that next step, now is the time. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege to get 15% off your first order for a limited time. Rugiet Ready. Feel present, feel confident, feel ready. Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs nothing but keeps all of this free. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the world. You already live your team every single day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Ole Miss with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 per month or $50 per year. Go to lockedonolemmiss.supercast.com and check out the link down in the show notes to learn more. All right, David. So there's 2 quarterbacks on campus right now, and these are probably the 2 names that everybody wants to know about. Deuce Knight has already been predicted to Ole Miss by Pete Nakos, and I'm sure they're doing the same thing at 247. Anybody that does predictions is looking that direction. And that prediction came in moments after the Trinidad Chambliss waiver news dropped. So there's some serious there. So Deuce Knight's on campus, but they're going to want to sign 2 quarterbacks. And I like what Deuce Knight could bring, but he is one of those situations when he gets to campus, if he gets to campus, that John David Baker, he has to be in 5th gear going up into the season.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I would agree with everybody that Deuce Knight is coming to Ole Miss. I covered Deuce's recruitment extremely close, and I reported every time he snuck up to Oxford when he was a senior and committed to Auburn. He came to a ball game one time, the Georgia game, 2 years ago when Ole Miss beat Georgia. He also snuck up here for a football camp and a visit when Nike was holding something up here. So I know Deuce. As a matter of fact, I was the first person to ever write a recruiting story on Deuce Knight. He showed up at a camp and a combine that me and my partner Marcus Dent were having at Colin Community College going into 9th grade. And man, you could tell right then and there, this kid had something that a lot of other kids didn't. And that was the mojo, the moxie, the God-given talent to be an impact player in college football. I've read what Hugh Freeze had to say about Deuce Knight. I know what Derek Nix said about Deuce Knight. I mean, they both think he's an all-world caliber, potential all-world caliber quarterback. He had 1 start at Auburn this year. He threw for 230, ran for like 160, accounted for 6 touchdowns. That was against Mercer. But if you put up those kind of numbers against anybody, it bears notoriety. And I think if Deuce is given the keys to a well-equipped offense, and I think Ole Miss is going to have a well-equipped offense going into next year, he can flourish. He is a true dual threat quarterback, a freak of an athlete, and priority number 1 for the Ole Miss Rebels right now. I don't even have to ask anybody that. We all know that. DJ Lagway would be a big-time get. I just think Ole Miss is really going to have to impress DJ Lagway because he's committed to Baylor, where his dad ran the football. So
I think he's about to visit Clemson too.
Yeah, he's going to visit Clemson, and then I mean, why not see the world when they're paying for it? I get it, and I'm not saying that's what DJ's doing. I sure hope Ole Miss can sway him and quarterback issues are resolved. Other than the fact about an hour ago, Keith Carter put out a release stating that Ole Miss was going to appeal the Trinidad decision, and they were going to fight it tooth and nail and work with Trinidad's representation while they're doing it. So I mean, as the world turns with quarterbacks right here. But with Deuce Knight, I really don't think it's going to affect him either way with Trinidad coming back, because I think Deuce would appreciate a year behind a Heisman Trophy caliber quarterback in Trinidad Chambliss. And, just my take. I think Lagway is going to want to go in to where he can battle for a job immediately. So we'll see what happens from there. But it's definitely heating up on the quarterback side of things. And, you would think that would be the first issue Ole Miss would want to address, even though they're addressing that secondary, as we talked about. The wide receiver on campus right now, actually, Cameron Miller from Kentucky, and the other offensive lineman we talked about who can play offensive tackle is Toshoba from Ohio State. He started 28 games for the Buckeyes, so, he's the real deal.
Yeah, that would be an unbelievable get as well. They've already gotten Kern out of LSU on the offensive side of the ball. And one thing that I'm curious about, who is the safety from Southern Mississippi?
Yeah, his first name is Ian. Hold on one second. I want to tell you. Let me get over here to Ole Miss 365. And his name is Ian Foster. And look, he is a safety. He was an all-conference safety. But the thing you got to know about Foster, one of the best kick returners in the country, period. So, again, addressing all needs. But he's certainly a member, or would be a valuable member of that secondary. He's on campus as well.
All right, when we come back, your comments. Be sure to put where you're commenting from. We want to shout that out. We will ask your transfer portal recruiting questions as well with David Johnson of Ole Miss 365 right after we come back from this. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action every single day of the playoffs. Because right now, college football playoff game day, FanDuel users are getting a profit boost waiting for them in the app. Here's what I love about it. You get to use the profit boost on the bets you already feel good about. Ride with the favorite when you think that team controls the matchup. I'm sure people are going to use that boost on Indiana when they can. Take a shot at the underdog when you feel an upset coming. There's kind of a miracle on ice feel to that game because of what Indiana has looked like. Then you apply the profit boost and go after even bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get in on the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com and get your college football playoff profit boost every single game day. That is FanDuel.com. All right, David, let's get into the comment section. We got about 10, 12 minutes of people that might be commenting what's going on. We got a few questions out there. We got Brian Dean saying hotty toddy, still an excited and grateful Rebel. You should be. Everybody, Ole Miss is still the talk of the college football world because of that run. The loss in the game to the Miami didn't really necessarily slow that down, but Ole Miss is definitely going that way. Dustin says hotty toddy from Tupelo. Let's see. I know the Rebels have, let's see. Blow this up real quick so I can see what's going on. Ole Miss has two defensive linemen that they're looking at. What about wide receiver? There's a guy from Texas that was supposed to be on campus recently. Any update on that?
Yeah, DeAndre Moore. We haven't heard how exactly that went. I think DeAndre actually may still be on campus right now. And we just told you about Cameron Miller, the wide receiver from Kentucky, that is on the Ole Miss campus as well. Now, if I'm a wide receiver, I kind of want to wait and see who the quarterback is. And, I think we'll have that resolved this weekend as well.
And it's also important to realize that Ole Miss has a significant advantage when it comes to the transfer portal over other schools. The last day of drop ads, right about February 2nd or 3rd, that you can recruit to. There's schools that are starting right now, are already in session, and their last day of drop ad is going to be June 16th, January 16th or 17th. So that extra 2 weeks are going to be big, and you can wait offensively on the Ole Miss team as well of what's going on.
Stephen, before we move on, you brought up something a little while ago that I want to dwell on a little bit, and that's the fact that, you know, Ole Miss competed in the Fiesta Bowl just a few nights ago. Mm-hmm. This is an Ole Miss program for you guys like me that have been following this for a long time. The thing we've got to get in our heads moving forward is this is not the same Ole Miss program anymore. Not that we've been to the playoffs, we've won 2 playoff games. Think about the exposure that gives you as an elite program. And, you know, as my daughter tells me a lot of times, Dad, it's not 1989 anymore. And it's not. It's not 89 anymore. You know, back then, you know, all of us people that have been following it for 50 years, I mean, it was the Independence Bowl, or God help us if we went to the Liberty Bowl, or, you know, a bowl like that. And one year we went to the Gator Bowl and Michigan killed us. That was 91, I believe. But, you know, this is a program that has sustained success. And I was on the Stingray show the other day, and we were talking about how the rivalry between Ole Miss and Mississippi State is. It's an important game still, but you know what? It's distanced itself. Ole Miss no longer is recruiting against Mississippi State, with the very rare exception of the top kids in Mississippi. That's really it. Ole Miss is now recruiting against Alabama, Georgia, A&M, you know, the top tier of the SEC. And that's something that I think this portal cycle, we've kind of got to get used to. Yes, Pete is recruiting it as good or better than Lane ever did. But Lane never was able to recruit the portal coming off a playoff run like Ole Miss is. 3 playoff games, 2 wins, and 1 all-time classic hell of a game against the Miami Hurricanes. So, you know, this is a lot different program than what we got used to. Ole Miss is America's team. You know, it still is. So, you know, this is a different ballgame, Stephen.
Yes, it absolutely is. This is from Marty Kinney. He says, good afternoon, Stephen. Marty from Milton, Florida. What's the difference in Beck and why he got 6 years and Chambliss can't get 1 year? Isn't their eligibility years the same? HYDR. It really is. The problem that I have is like TJ Finley, where it would be his 6th year and all of that. It feels like the NCAA has just picked this year to put a line in the sand, essentially, of what's going on, and there's no rhyme or reason for what's going on.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think Chambliss could win a lawsuit. I really and truly do. I don't know, and I know we referenced Keith Carter issuing a statement a little while ago, but I don't know where he's at on that, so I don't want to say anything. But you know, I do believe that he could win a lawsuit. The NCAA is gambling that they're not going to pursue a legal remedy to this.
Yeah, they are gambling that. And Donna Taylor says, did Trinidad and his family decide not to try to go to the Mississippi court system? I don't think we know that yet. I think the way this is going to go, since Trinidad's staying at Ole Miss, you don't have to worry about the transfer portal. It doesn't exist for him. I think what they're waiting on is his NFL draft grade, if we're going to be honest, because if he gets a 1st round grade, maybe a 2nd round grade, he's probably gone that way. But if it's like 3rd through 6th, if you see that, that's when they're going to hit the court system.
Yeah, and Stephen, I'll ask you. I mean, where do you see his draft grade falling?
I don't know. The problem that Trinidad is going to have is that he is 5'11", 6 foot tall, somewhere around there. He's somebody that if he gets an invite to the combine and what measures in at 5'10" for some reason, it can be weird. His draft stock could plummet. He's an excellent quarterback. And if the rumor's true to where Ole Miss is willing to pay him $5 million for next season, if he goes in the second round, he's only guaranteed 2.7.
Yep.
That's what Tyler Shuck got for the New Orleans Saints this year. So twice as much money for less risk. I mean, you might want to play the lawyer game. And when you have Tom Mars, we all know what Tom Mars can do. We've all seen that. We've seen that story. So Tom Mars actually being on an Ole Miss player's side, you should have a lot of confidence that Trinidad will potentially be back. And in my opinion, like you said earlier, Trinidad Chambliss, if he comes back and you have Deuce Knight, it's only a 1 year for Trinidad Chambliss, and you're sitting behind the Heisman favorite and learning how to play the game from him. Because I'm going to tell everybody that's watching this, I don't know that Ole Miss has had a quarterback since Eli that is prepared in the way that Trinidad Chambliss has.
Oh, I agree, man.
Yeah.
The football IQ, and not just football IQ, but the IQ overall that rolls out of Trinidad is absolutely amazing. And Stephen, he is a devout Christian, just a great kid all the way around. And, prays with his mom before every game. Mom hasn't missed a game ever. And I understand that. I get that. Just from a great family and a great representative of college football. Why would college football want to kick Trinidad Chambliss out when he's one of the best ambassadors they could possibly have? It makes no sense. It really makes no sense. Baby Diego up at Vanderbilt got that extra year, and I know a little bit different situation, but, Trinidad, he played in 2 games 1 year at Ferris State, 2 games. Yeah. Give him the 6th year, and it was due to health concerns.
Yeah.
So
that can be documented. And the reason they denied it was on December 22nd, everything looked good. Well, I hate to break it to everybody, but that's after the football season.
Yeah, exactly. It is. Yeah. Absolutely. That's a good point, Stephen. That's a really good point. And, you may want to send that one into Tom Mars. But I'm just saying, man, let the kid play ball. It's good for the NCAA. It's good for the kid. It would definitely be good for Ole Miss, but it's good for the SEC. Who's it bad for? Who are they hurting? LSU, Alabama, Georgia. Yeah, they're hurting them if he gets to come back. But, I'm not going to get into a conspiracy theory, but, hashtag let the kid play.
Yeah, seriously. All right, before we get out of here, it says from Six String, says DJ Lagway is talented, but he's a turnover machine. And I do want to take this opportunity to defend DJ Lagway a little bit, because you see that in the fan base because of what he did. I actually live in the state of Florida. So whenever everything happened with DJ Lagway, I got to hear some stuff behind the scenes that probably other people did not. And the rumor is, and I will say rumor, is a deadline to have a shoulder surgery passed to where it had to heal organically. You could have it repaired and he would have been back for the middle of spring or something like that and everything. They missed that deadline, which led to him missing most of spring practice and almost all of fall camp. And the beginning part of the season, he struggled because the timing was off with wide receivers. His arm wasn't quite there, all of that stuff. By the end of the year, he was a pretty good quarterback. He wasn't great because of all the stuff they missed, but he was a pretty good quarterback. And it's important to realize that you can't really blame the kid for something that Florida did. And I think that needs to be remembered when you look at the performance of DJ Lagway. That LSU defense, they were really good. And if your timing was off, if your arm was off, all of that stuff in the beginning of the season, you were going to have problems. And that is just me defending DJ Lagway.
No, I totally get it. And, and look, if he comes to Oxford, he's going to be under the tutelage of Joe Judge and John David Baker. And, Joe Judge is as good of a quarterback's coach as anybody, period. And, John David Baker you saw what he did at East Carolina this year. He's going to call a jet-oriented, fast-paced offense, and DJ would plug in well into that in the case that we didn't get Deuce Knight. If you do get Deuce Knight, oh my God, if you got DJ Lagway as your quarterback 1B, so to speak, that would just be tremendous. A guy with SEC experience, a veteran, who I might point out beat Ole Miss in 2024 and kept us out of the college football playoffs. So, or we would have been in there 2 years in a row. Yeah. So, that's kind of it. That and what's going to go on legally with Trinidad Chambliss, that's kind of where we're at with the quarterback situation. But you kind of feel that snowball rolling downhill, that this is going to end up being very good for the Ole Miss Rebels moving ahead, with or without Trinidad Chambliss.
All right, what do you got going on in Ole Miss 365, buddy?
Man, we are covering, of course, the men tip-off with Missouri here in just a little bit at 5 p.m. Central Time. We'll have full coverage of that. We've got that game staffed by our staff writer, Thomas Michael. We've got portal coverage throughout the night and deep into Sunday morning, and we're not stopping there. We don't stop until Ole Miss stops. So we got a lot going on. And, hey, we got a 4 o'clock special live edition of Locked On Ole Miss. Man, and I thank you for that. That's been awesome. Perfect timing for it.
I think we need to do it tomorrow, too.
Hey, let's do it. Yeah. I'm all for it. So that's what we've got going on. Got my new business cards in today. I'm excited about that. Haven't carried a business card in 15 years, but anyway, and got my salespeople's business cards in. So
all right,
they're all set, and we're ready to start selling some advertising around all of this.
All right, David, we will see you tomorrow. We'll continue to talk about the transfer portal for basically this whole month. So expect live shows from time to time to give up-to-the-minute information about Ole Miss and the transfer portal to everybody. David, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow, bud.
All right, Stephen, thank you.
All right. Thanks for tuning in today on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Tomorrow we will have another transfer portal live stream, as you just heard, with David Johnson. We're going to try and do it about 4 o'clock Central Time. Make sure you're subscribed and follow the show so you can get all the latest episodes. We're on all the social channels, so check those out as well. Did Locked On Ole Miss make your Spotify Wrapped? Proven on social media to secure a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag our last national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform, and we will drop you the code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club to get your favorite show ad-free and exclusive access to the members-only Discord channel. For all of you on video, we're going to send you on over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen either Locked On College Football or Locked On SEC. Hotty toddy, everybody. The transfer portal's kicking. Should be pretty interesting. Thank y'all. Hotty toddy.